Does anyone have any idea what you've been watching?
Instructional videos.
That's right. So those are 2 or 3 videos of hundreds that are on YouTube that teach you how to hack, teach you how to breach systems. The last person there, the voice was disguised to protect their identity, but there are hundreds of videos. You can literally go on YouTube and type how to breach a system, how to crack a password, how to crack into wireless, how to do all these things, and there are videos on how to do it. What does that mean to you, right? It means that it's no longer some guy sitting in a dark room or trying to crack into your system. It's now pretty much anybody, and you don't have to have any type of technical background to be able to do these types of things. So this kind of feeds into why we're here this morning. Our presentation, CyberCrime Behind the Scenes, it's really what we're trying to do today is we want to kind of peel back the covers, look behind the curtain, and share with you just what's happening in the cybercrime industry. Because it's an industry, it's a real business, and it's big business, big money. And the targets have changed. The targets have changed from the large corporations. The targets now are pretty much SMBs. SMBs being anywhere from 11 end users to 100 end users is really what's in the crosshairs. But if you're in that sweet spot of 100 to 300 end users, you're ripe for the picking for these bad actors. We're going to use some terms today too that you may not have heard before. I'm going to use terms of just cybercriminal. I'm going to use terms like bad actor, bad actors. And basically, I'm just referring to the same person. These are just people that are committing nefarious acts, breaching your systems for no good. So again, we're partnering with OpenDNS. They're a partner of ours, very strong partner of ours. They were recently acquired by Cisco, in case you haven't heard, which I think is a big thing for them. They were a great company standing alone, but now with Cisco's backing, it's gonna create more opportunity for development, I believe, on that product. Security headline news, right? How many times are we hearing about it in the news? We're hearing about, we heard about the hospital out in Los Angeles that had a breach, ransomware, had to pay $17,000 to get their encrypted radiological images back. There was a hospital in Northern Virginia, MedStar, that got hit. But it's not really about national. In my opinion, it's no longer national headline news. It's happening in our backyards. It's happening every day. It's happening in Richmond. It's happening in Virginia. I understand from one of our clients that it happened in Ashland. Small pediatric practice in Ashland hit with ransomware, had to pay $5,000 to get their data back. So it's no longer, again, national news. It's in the everyday conversations of all of us. So what are the things that are happening in technology today that are enabling the bad actors to become be in the headline news, right? Why are we seeing such an accelerated approach to network breaches? Well, it's been really because of changes in technology. The same technology that you all are leveraging, software as a service, for example. When I say software as a service, I mean if you're leveraging some type of cloud application, right? If you've got Office 365, for example, for your email, cloud-based application. If you are using an EHR in the cloud, cloud-based application. The reason using those types of solutions is because they're easy to subscribe to. They're quick to deploy, right? So you really shorten the amount of time to deploy an application by leveraging cloud. Same with infrastructure as a service. Everyone's probably heard of Rackspace or Amazon, right? Amazon, you can go to Amazon and you can actually rent storage to put files on Amazon. You can rent servers on Rackspace to spin up servers very quickly. So the same technologies that we're using to do legitimate business, cybercrime as a service, the cybercriminals are using those same solutions because it speeds up their entry, it speeds up their operations to be able to access systems. Here's why. Evolution of cybercrime, back in the day, it was very centralized. It was, as I mentioned, it was probably 1 or 2 people that were, in some building or in their home that were, just trying to crack into environments. And back in the day, they did it really for notoriety. They were trying to be, if anyone remembers the name Kevin Mitnick from the 90s, Kevin Mitnick was born in 1963. Kevin Mitnick broke into his first system in 1977, right? It was just his behavior. He wanted to be no different than a graffiti artist spray painting on a wall. Kevin Mitnick wanted to be known for his ability to crack into large corporations. He wasn't doing it to get money. He was doing it to get fame. He was doing it to get notoriety. And he was eventually caught in 2000, if you remember those stories back in the early days, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And now Kevin Mitnick owns a very profitable cyber intrusion company, where what they do is that he's paid now. His company is paid to find breaches or find loopholes. So again, back in the day, the old cyber criminals, they were centralized. They built all their systems from scratch. They owned their own servers, right? It was expensive to do what they did, and because it was expensive, their targets were large targets. They were going after big businesses like Xerox, right? They were going after big corporations. Today, it's completely different. The cyber criminals today have built their own ecosystem. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But they built their own ecosystem. So by doing so, their systems now are distributed. So it's not just one person doing the nefarious activities. It could be many people involved in just breaching one company. They will either buy software to commit these acts, or they will host with a company that specializes in hosting for cyber criminals. They specialize, right? These guys are targeting specific verticals or specific size businesses. Their solutions are pretty cheap, and because their solutions are cheap, they're not having to spend a lot of money, their targets are a lot smaller. So before I go any further, I want to say one thing. The big difference between old and new that's not on the slide deck is, like I said, with the old cybercrime mentality was, hey, I want to be the guy breaking in your system. It's me. It's Bill Lopez, right? I'd hacked into your system. Ha ha ha, right? Today, the cyber criminals are under the radar. They don't want any notoriety. They don't want to be caught because they're going after a pot of gold. They're going after your money. That's the difference. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. That's why it's hard to catch these guys. They're not trying to be caught. They're avoiding it at all costs. A little bit about their marketplace, right? A little bit about their ecosystem. So these guys actually have job postings, right? If anyone's ever seen work from home, make $12,000 a month scam, anyone ever seen that? That's this, okay? You may apply for that and not realize what you're doing. What you're actually doing is you're participating in one step of many that is breaching a system or moving funds or something like that. And they've created software in a way that you really don't know what you're doing, but you're on the back end, you're doing something that's criminal. So those job postings you see, that's part of this type of scam. Payment systems. These guys have developed their own type. They haven't developed their own type of currency, but they're leveraging they're leveraging an internet form of currency called Bitcoin or web money or perfect money. They used to take ATM. They used to take debit cards. They used to take credit cards. For example, when you were doing ransomware, they would actually take that. Today, they don't take that anymore. Today, they only want Bitcoin. Why do they want Bitcoin? It's very difficult to track or trace. You can't figure out where it's going, where the money's going to, so that's their preferred method of being paid in a ransomware situation. And then they have their own marketplaces. Those are a few examples of some of the marketplaces they have out there where, as a bad actor, say I want to get into cybercrime, I can go to one of those sites. Those are just three of many. I can go to those sites and I can say, hey, you know what? I want to subscribe to this particular type of software because this particular type of software will find me 1,000 machines that have potential breaches on them, and then from there I can plant my malware, and that malware will encrypt your machine, and I can then charge you ransom to get your data back, right? So again, they've created it. They're very organized now. They've got an entire spectrum of services and systems in place to breach your system. Okay? So again, I'm painting this picture that it's a true industry. It's a true industry. It's big business. These are just some statistics. I mentioned earlier about SMB businesses being in the crosshairs. This one slide's a little dated, but Symantec stated in 2013 that 41% of breaches that were occurring were going to be in the SMB market. And then Verizon's breach report basically says the same thing, that if you are an organization of 11 to 100 employees, you're 15 times more likely to be targeted by a bad actor to breach your system. So that's a little bit of the history. It's a little bit of what these guys were thinking, their mentality. Next thing we're going to talk about is how the infection occurs. What happens, right? What allows these guys to get on my system? Anyone see anything like this before? Coming through an email? Anybody? So this is what they call a phishing attack. A phishing attack is when bad actor will send something through electronic media that looks legit. Might use a name of someone on the inside of the office. Might use the name of a company you do business with to trick you into clicking on their links, which that link will then you inadvertently pull down software on your machine that infects your machine. They've gotten really good at it. So this logo, pretty legit. This is a pretty legitimate type of message you might get. Unfortunately, we failed to deliver the postal package you had sent on 27th of July. This is a real message. This happens every day in you all's lives, right? Someone's having something delivered from FedEx or from UPS. So it's real easy to look at this, as busy as everyone is, and click print shipping link. It's real easy to do that, mistakenly do that, because everyone's busy. It looks legitimate, but if you look really hard in the email heading, it's FeedX. It's FeeDeeX. It just added a letter, 2 letters in there, and you're looking at it so fast, you don't pick up on it. It's real easy to mistake that. So again, their techniques have become more mature, more refined. Another thing that's on the rise is what they call malvertising. It's a play on words, malware, and advertising. And what they do is they subscribe to a website. Typically, when they subscribe to a website, they're doing a stolen credit card. That way, they don't get caught. Or they might create a fictitious company name. They'll create this website, and they'll put what's called an exploit kit on it. Exploit kit is nothing more. We'll talk about that in a minute. But an exploit kit is nothing more than software they've either purchased or subscribed to that when you click on it, it infects your machine. It's an exploit. What they'll do is they'll run an ad. You might see an ad on Yahoo or AOL or even the New York Times. They'll run an ad that appears to be legitimate that you're interested in, and as soon as you click on it, it redirects you to that exploit site, and you get infected. This is an example of some malvertising that's gotten really good. What they've done is the cyber criminals they don't create their own creative material. They actually steal it. So this is a legitimate graphic from Bing. They've taken that graphic. They've paid a legitimate website to put that graphic on there, and so it all looks legit. But when you click on it, it's going to take you directly to that exploit site, what's called a drive-by exploit site, and you inadvertently pull down malware on your machine. So again, this is another method. We've talked about phishing. We've talked about malvertising. So these are a couple of methods they're using to infiltrate your system. Spoke a little bit about this. This is that I mentioned exploit kit a little bit ago. These are just a bunch of the companies that are out there that you can subscribe to for as little as $200 a year. So for $200 a year, I can subscribe to one of these companies and own my own exploit kit that is being managed on a server somewhere else. So you can kind of see, again, this is how these guys are doing it, how organized they become. This is what an exploit kit portal looks like. So I get the exploit kit. Now I get to look at the portal. I get to look at, who have I got today? How many people have I breached, right? So you start looking at the number of Windows 7 machines, Windows XP machines, number of hits, hosts, how many loads have been pushed as far as my attempts to breach their systems. It actually shows all the exploits here. Flash, PDF files, Flash files, etc. If you haven't updated those particular versions, what this exploit kit will do is look for weaknesses in that software and figure out a way to weasel its way into your machine. So it does it in a variety of forms. It's looking for software vulnerabilities in this case, and what they'll do is if you start noticing that you're not getting the hits you want as a cyber criminal, you can pay a little bit more money to the hosting provider, and they will actually give you more opportunity. They will give you more exploits to use to get through the shell, get through that outer shell. What we talked about there, that's a couple of the ways that these guys are infiltrating your systems, right? A more intermediate way to do it, which is more tactical, and then financial is what's called a dropper. Okay, this is the one I think is going to mean a lot to you all. The dropper is a 4-step process. Okay, bad actor gets a piece of malware on your computer using one of those methods. The malware sits on your computer very quietly. You don't know what's on there. No trigger. There's no blinking lights or graphics that says, "Hey, I've been infected." Nothing. It sits there dormant. But what it's doing is it's just waiting. It's kind of waiting until the bad actor that puts it on there, until that bad actor rents out your machine. So what that bad actor is going to do, he did his job. He cracked the shell. So you can see, I mentioned earlier decentralization, right? I mentioned earlier that multiple people having jobs to infiltrate an organization. So the bad actor sold, he's now in your machine, and now he's going to sell the rights to somebody else to put their malware on your workstation. Okay? So he's now, it's like he's a real estate broker. He's got this real estate on your workstation. Now he's going to rent it out to somebody else to the highest bidder. So now he's going to go to market. He's going to go to someone and say, hey, I've got 1,500 machines that I've breached. They're waiting to be infected with malware. Going to the highest bidder. Who wants it? Right? So at that point, what happens, they'll sell this to someone who will install their payload software. Remember that term, payload. They'll install their payload software. Payload software could be ransomware, crypto wall. You've heard of that. It could be a keylogger. We'll talk about keyloggers, or a spam bot. These are all different types of malware payloads that actually do the bad stuff to your environment. So until that's happened, all he's done is created an entry point for a bad actor to come in there and drop their software on it. Okay? But the point is, again, they're profiting off of this. If the contract ends, so if they've ended in that machine, this is the crazy part. If that contract ends on that particular workstation that this guy's trying to rent out, he'll just rent it out again and again and again to multiple bad people, right? I mean, so he's trying to capitalize on it until that workstation is no longer available. So it's an infinite process. It just doesn't stop with one person trying to rent out that machine. This is the creme de la creme. This is the coup de grace. This is where those bad guys end up. After you've rented out the PC, and I've sold the rights to 1,000 PCs to Ronnie, this is what Ronnie gets to see. You get to see all these workstations. You get to see what country they're in. You get to see what their online status is, how often that machine's online. You get to see the processing power of that machine. Let's say, for example, you want a machine to push a bunch of spam out on. I want to use a machine that's not mine, that I want to push a bunch of spam out to a bunch of people. It's got to be a powerful machine. It's got to be up all the time. It's probably going to be a server, not a workstation you're going after there, right? So at that point, you can actually determine which machines are workstations, which ones are servers. You can have your pick. So you can see how refined this portal is. I mean, this is the access. It will even tell you the serial numbers of the operating systems. It will tell you what version of antivirus that these machines are running. That might be important to the nefarious actor because if they know that their malware is picked up by a certain antivirus, they're going to avoid that. So they're going to only want to put it on the workstations, for example, that run Symantec. So it's the information there is very rich for these guys to leverage as far as what their strategy is. So this is where they want to end up. They want to get to this point, and they can have their pick machine they want to deploy their payload, malware payload on. This is an example of a post that was done on a blog, CyberCrime Marketplace. It's in Russian, so this is it expanded and translated. So it says, "Greetings to all. Due to overstock, I'm selling unneeded installs." So this guy's had a great month, I guess. He's been able to deploy his software on many machines and has not sold them all. So he's got a sale. He's got a basement sale going on right now. So for $60, he'll give you 1,000 workstations for $60. He'll give you 1,000 workstations. He'll put your software on there, and he'll do it at $60. So this is he'll even give you the geographies. It's a mix of countries with no Asia. So in this case, this person is saying, hey, we're going to push this malware anywhere in the world, but we're not going to touch Asia for whatever reason that might be. Maybe he lives there, who knows? But this kind of gives you an idea of their sales on their when they put a sales notification out on their marketplace website. This is the kind of stuff they see. We've talked about how we get infected. We've talked about the methods. Now we're talking about the payload. What's being put on the workstations? What type of software is it that's being put on the workstations? There's two types that are really bad. Okay, one's called a keylogger. I mentioned that term earlier, keylogger. Keyloggers actually capture the keys you're typing. So when they breach a workstation and then they sell the rights to that workstation to Bill Lopez, and Bill Lopez gets on there and I put Spy on there, for example, I've got a keylogger. So I'm just sitting back and waiting. I'm waiting for you to do a transaction. And I'm going to capture, not only am I going to capture the credit card number, but I can also capture the CVV number. So I can this is more of a financial approach. So a bad actor that's got more of a financial mentality. Maybe he's going after POS systems. Maybe he's going after anyone who's doing any type of bank transactions, that sort of thing. They're going to use a keylogger like this to get that information. probably not the case in your environment. Maybe, I mean, I know you all handle payments at the front window, so at your checkout desk. So it could be they could use something like this, but typically this is targeted more towards businesses that are doing a lot of transactions, because the more transactions you do, the quicker, the more that happen in a day, the less likely they're going to get caught. What's interesting about this particular, so let me go back to SPY. What's interesting about this is that the person that created it is a Russian that actually got caught by the FBI. And the reason it's interesting is because when they caught him, it enabled the FBI to get a lot of information about how these guys operate. And this person had shared with the FBI that they had sold their software from anywhere from $1,000 to $8,500 a pop to about 150 bad actors. It's a lot of money there, right? One of the bad actors that goes by the moniker Soldier had shared that he had made, just himself, made $3.2 million of financial fraud just using the software alone, right? So pretty bold numbers here. But again, I think what's important is that by catching this person and taking them down, we got data. We have a better understanding of the thought process and how these individuals are operating. This is just an example of some SMB banks that were breached. I think what's important here is a bank like, or for example, a cinema here, is $81,000 stolen from the cinema, or $150,000 stolen from this Down East Energy and Building Supply. That's not millions of dollars, for a large corporation, but for a company that size, it's probably a lot of money. It's probably their payroll. It's probably their accounts payable money that they're going to use to pay bills. That type of breach can take an SMB down very quickly. It can really hurt them. Some of these didn't recover from these breaches because of their size. The other thing I will share with you, we'll talk about in a minute, is that a lot of times these businesses don't survive, not only because of the financial impact, because of the reputation to their business being breached. This is the big one, right? This is the one we're all kind of worried about. Worried about all of them, but this is the bad boy right here, ransomware. This is the one that kind of takes you hostage, right? Because you really have two options. When you get ransomware in a workstation or a server, you have one of two options. You either pay the ransom or you don't. Pretty much that's it. If you don't pay the ransom, it's because you've got good backups. Right? That's why I'm not going to get it. We've got another session we're going to talk about this summer on backups and data recovery, business continuity disaster recovery. Backups are huge. Backups are huge with ransomware, and we have had clients get ransomware. Right? We've had it happen, but we've been able to recover every time because we had good backups, and that's key with ransomware. So the important takeaways from today, if there's anything, is make sure you've got, confirm you've got good backups with your service provider. Whether it's us or anybody else, confirm you've got good backups. We're going to make sure we do for this one reason alone, beyond just doing restores for data. There have been many versions of this crypto ransomware, this crypto virus. Many versions. The latest version is called Crypto Wall. Okay, it is probably the most bulletproof version. It is the one that's predominantly we're seeing in the field today. The way that Crypto Wall works is similar to the dropper. Remember we talked about the dropper? It kind of puts itself on there, waits patiently, waits for someone to rent it out. That's the same way here, except it's got a few more steps. So again, stage one, how is the exploit put on the machine? It's put on there through email, perhaps. Exploit kit, malvertising, or dropper. One of those four methods. That's how ransomware gets on the workstation. What it does next is it phones home. It does a phone home command. So it actually is, once it's on your workstation, it's calling to a command server. When it calls a command server, what it's trying to do is get an encryption key. When it gets that encryption key, it starts to encrypt your data. Now, that encryption process can take anywhere from a few hours to a few days. You are none the wiser. You don't know it's happening. No one knows that's going on at that point. So it's just got to do its process. When it's done, it's put military level encryption on your drive that cannot be cracked by anyone. Other versions of malware, other versions of ransomware, we've been able to figure out how to crack. And the industry data recovery specialists have been able to figure out a way to crack that encryption. This one, they can't do it. So very difficult, impossible at this point. And then you have 72 hours after the encryption's done. You have 72 hours to either meet the demands of the bad actor or forfeit your data. one of the two. This is the process, everyone. This is what we're trying to avoid ever happening in your environment. So moving forward, what might be in the back of your minds also is, hey, I've got antivirus, I've got AVG, or I've got Symantec, I've got this or that. Why isn't that keeping the ransomware on my workstation? What is it doing for me? Well, those are called signature-based security approaches, or in this case, security-based security evasion. What happens is this: the study. This is kind of old. This is 2011, but 30 to 50% of the current AV solutions on the market are only affected. 30 to 50%, right? Why is that? Here's why. Again, going back to the marketplace on the ecosystem, there is one particular software that's on the market. Bad actor can buy the software called Cypher. It's called Cryptor. It has the ability, at least at this time, to bypass 35 antivirus solutions in under 3 minutes. Okay, so how does that work? What it does is this is what the application looks like. So let's say you've got your malware payload, right? We talked about payloads a little bit ago. That's the bad part of the software that's going to do the harm on your workstation or server. They'll take that payload and they'll put it in here. And what this software does is it kind of cloaks it. It puts some ingredients in it that make it look like a legitimate file. Okay, so it builds the file to look not like a piece of malware. Once that happens, it's then run across all of these AV solutions on that software to see if they catch it. If these software solutions, these AV solutions, and you can see that just about everything you know on the market, McAfee, Panda, Norton Antivirus, F-Secure, all of those they've been out for years. And many organizations use these software products to protect their workstations. That software will run that modified file against all of those to see if it picks it up. And it will keep running it over and over again until none of them pick it up. So if it fails a few of the AV solutions, no big deal. You just keep running it, keep cooking it basically until it gets the file in a format that is ignored by that antivirus solution. So that's these evasion tactics are out there and easily accessible on that marketplace. So that's how that's happening today. These are some examples of some pricing. So these are all subscriptions. I mean, for 6 months, I can spend $49 for 6 months and have access to that software. I can go. I even have premium support. I can call someone if I can't use it, if it doesn't work right. So it's just ridiculous. So for $150, it's a year. Plus, I get a few more bells and whistles with that package. The bad actors aren't going after the large corporations directly. What they've done is they're getting involved in their supply chain. So they're trying to figure out who they're doing business with, who they're communicating with, and then they will slide in their back door and work their way into your system. Here's an example. Everyone remember the Target breach that happened a few years ago? That was like the biggest breach in history, right? They didn't break into Target's front door. They went into Target's back door. And the way they did that is they went into a company called Fazio Mechanical Services. Fazio Mechanical Services, God bless them. They were the HVAC company that did all the maintenance for Target. Okay. Well, these guys were running a free version of antivirus, Malwarebytes, on their desktops. Free version, home edition. They thought they were doing all the right things, but very weak protection, right? So bad actors infiltrated Fazio Mechanical Services because Fazio had direct connectivity to the invoicing system at Target. That's how they worked their way into Target, and it was one of the largest breaches in history. So the point here is we all, as organizations, have VPNs or interfaces or connectivity to various entities, right? Whether it's for LabCorp or whether it's for radiological images, etc. We have to make sure that any connectivity we have to those third-party companies is secure, that we're limiting specific types of traffic across the VPN. We're not just leaving it wide open, that we have to make sure that those organizations, those entities are protected. We have to ask them, hey, are you protected? Are you doing all the right things? Because if we don't, it's tough enough to protect yourself from everyone else, let alone have tentacles coming in from 8 or 9 other entities that you may not know if they're protected or not. So that's what happened here. Target had great systems in place to protect them, but the weakness was they had a small partner that was coming in, took care of their mechanical HVAC stuff that was not protected, and that's how they were breached.
But if you had asked them, they would have said they were.
Maybe.
Well, they thought they were.
Yeah, they were, but so I mean, I think now you're armed. But so the difference now is you're empowered. You're empowered to say that. You're empowered to go, hey, I know you're telling me you're protected, but let me, understand that we've been briefed by our service provider that we need to understand or bring us into the fold in that case and go, hey, I want service provider to talk to you. I want to make sure that you all are doing all the right things. So yeah, you're right, Beth. Before today, someone would have said I'm protected, and you're like, great, you're protected. But knowing what you know now is powerful. So now you go in and you actually can say, look, I know you're telling me you're protected, but I know of an incident with Target where one of their service providers thought they were protected and they weren't. And so leverage us as much as you can. And if you have a different service provider, leverage them, make them go and stand by you on that conversation when you're bringing someone else into your business that's going to connect to your business for some reason. We talked a little bit about impact of breach is high, right? We talked about this a little bit. It's not just about the financial; it's about reputation, right? So Fazio, these guys, this is on their website. If you go to Fazio Mechanical Services, from this president and owner, even though I think this breach was like 2 years ago, that's still on their website. It's damaged them. If you don't think that they lost business because of that, damaged them. No different than the guys that were hosting President Mrs. Clinton's email server. Damaged. Those guys are donezo, right? So this will impact your business if this happens to you. This is a statistic. I think it's pretty bold. I don't know if I agree with 60%, but I think it just depends on the size of the business. But basically, there's a statistic that came from the Cyber Alliance that says 60% of small firms go out of business within 6 months after being breached. I think that some of that is true. I don't know if it's 60%, and I think it depends again on the size of the company. Because we know we have clients that have had small breaches before. They're still in business, are doing great. So I think it just depends on the severity of the breach and the size of the company, whether or not that they're a statistic like that or not. So what do we do going forward? How do we now that we know all these things, we kind of pull back the curtain, know what the cyber criminals are doing, we know how they're operating. How do we protect ourselves from these guys? So prevention. We have to prevent malware from happening, right? So we have to block sites in your environment. We've got to get away from having unfettered internet access. We have to get away from that mentality, okay? Whether it's using our solution or something else, you've got to start doing it. Internet web content filtering used to be all about wanting to keep so-and-so from going to Facebook during the day, or we wanted to make sure that this person was staying more productive and not being distracted by going to social media sites. Yeah, important stuff, really. But it's even become more important to keep them going from the wrong site to the wrong sites. And you don't have to go to a porn site or a violent site or anything like gambling. You don't have to do that anymore to get these types of infections. You can get them from legitimate websites, as I've pointed out. You can go to New York Times, you can go to Yahoo and pull down something inadvertently. So the landscape has changed from internet activity. Any questions?
So Bill, you said that if you've got good backups, then it's your solution without having to pay the ransom.
Correct.
What is done to keep them from day two coming right back and doing the same thing again?
Great question. So what we do is in our solution, when you get encrypted, first thing we're going to do is take that machine off the network, get it off. Okay, we don't want it spreading anywhere else. We get it off the network. We then start the backup recovery process, but we're also going to blow away your machine. Once we've confirmed we have your data backed up, one of the first things our team does, we have Sean McCormick, DJ, these guys in our team, they are, honestly, they're specialists now at this point. They know how to deal with these types of scenarios very well. They're the real technical guys when it comes to this. And they've got a hardened process that they've used many times over and over, very successfully. So they're going to take the machine off the network. They're going to get the data recovered. They're going to then blow away your workstation. So as soon as that happens, your workstation is blown away, it's rebuilt,